Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. During the autumn, our thoughts inevitably turn towards Christmas and what we can do to get ready and make a start on preparations. And one of the things I do every year is make my own mincemeat for my mince pies. And it needs time to mature, so you need to have at least 3 or 4 weeks before you're going to actually use this. So now is a good time to start thinking about it. Now there are quite a lot of ingredients involved and I've weighed everything out. And in the mixing bowl, to start off with, I've got suet, and I've got half a box of suet, vegetarian suet. You can get beef suet. It's actually the fat from around the kidney in the cow, and it protects the kidney during the cow's lifetime. A lot of people don't approve of that nowadays, so you can get vegetable suet, and it's half a box, which is 120 grams. And the purpose of it is to actually make this more digestible. And it's the last remaining ingredient from the historical times when minced meat was minced meat with fruits and spices to help preserve the meat for the winter. So 120 of suet, and then I've got 200 grams of raisins, which are dried red grapes, and I've got 200 grams of sultanas, which are dried green grapes. To that, I'm going to add a whole host of other ingredients, and this is something that you can adapt to suit your family's needs. Now, we're not greatly keen on currants, so I've simply got 100 grams of currants, and I'm going to add apricots as well, because that just has a lovely, lovely flavour. And these are the ones that are ready to eat, so you need to cut them, pair of scissors, and snip them into about 8 or 10 pieces. And that goes in, and there's the ones I've already got done. Have that one as well. We're going to add some peel, chopped peel, and I've got 100 grams of mixed peel. That goes in. It's very sticky. I try and avoid touching these things if I can because you get very messy. And then I'm going to add some cherries, glace cherries. If you wanted to, you could use the dried bitter cherries, and that would add a different depth of flavour. And because cherries are so sticky, these need to be cut into 4, and the best way is with a knife and fork, quite honestly. Hold it still. Cut through with your sharp knife, and they can go in as well. So that's my cherries that I've done, and the rest as well. So that's 100 grams of cherries. Right, that's the dried fruits. The next thing is the sugar, and I've got 200 grams of soft brown sugar. And to that I'm going to add the juice and the zest of a lemon. So I've squeezed my lemon, and you can see I've taken the zest off already. So in goes the lemon juice. And this starts to create the syrup. I don't know whether you've ever looked at the jars of mincemeat in the supermarket, but some of them contain vinegar to create this sticky syrup. We're not going to do that, as you can well imagine. The lemon juice starts to create that syrup, and the zest helps with the flavour. So that goes in. That's just the very outside of the lemon. You could use orange if you wanted to. Oh, I need the board. And then we're going to add a grated apple. So now we're going to use a cooking apple, and it's about 200 grams, but of course they don't grow to even sizes, so it's an approximation. A cooking apple that's about that size. There we are, I've peeled my apple, and as a child I would have thrown that over my shoulder to see the initial of the person that I was going to marry. I won't do that today, but that's quite good fun with little people. Now that needs to be grated, and if you do one face of the apple, and then grate the next face, ultimately you'll finish up with a square core in your hand. Right, so there's my apple core, and the apple goes in with all its juice. It's quite mushy. There we are, so that's the apple. So we've got nearly everything in. We just need to add some spice, and mixed spice. It's very Christmassy. It's a mixture of all sorts of spices, cloves, cinnamon, cardamom, all sorts of things. And a generous teaspoon of spice goes in. And then the other thing to put in is some brandy, and that helps to preserve it. So let's put in 1 tablespoon now, and we can add more later. And this is just the cheapest brandy that you can find, really. It's a preservative, and it also helps with the flavour. And now we mix. You're going to need a strong spoon for this because it's quite a stiffish mixture, and this is going to make about 3 pounds of mincemeat. You might feel that's too much for you, but it's nice to share it with friends. So if you can't use that much, pass it around to somebody else, because I think you'll find that once you've tasted homemade mincemeat, you're unlikely to buy commercial stuff again. This is much, much lighter and has a much nicer flavour. Right. So that's quite well mixed. The next thing to do is get the food processor, and half of it gets minced up in the food processor rather than one of those turn the handle mincers. We'll mince it in there. We want to put about half of this in the food processor with the blade in there, so it will go everywhere if you're not careful. So guess. You can see it's starting to glisten. It's quite shiny and moist. It smells actually amazing. If you like nuts in your mincemeat, I wouldn't add them until you're ready to use the mincemeat, because they sometimes have a habit of fermenting. So almonds or walnuts, but put them in as you use the mincemeat in your mince pies. Put a lid on. Noise, ready? There we are. And that has turned to a rather minced looking gloopy stuff. So we're going to tip that back into the bowl. Get it all out. There we are. And mix it back in. Just move that out of the way. Mix it all together. And that now gives you a mixture that will stick together better when you come to use it. If you don't mince any of it, it will all fall apart as you pick it up on the spoon. So a jolly good stir, and you're pretty much done. Right, there we are, that's it. It goes in a jar, a nice clean jar, or you could use 3 smaller jars. And we've got to get that in without it going everywhere. I think I'm going to switch spoons and use something a little bit smaller. There we are, good jar full. We don't want to press this down because we want to be able to add more brandy. Now, if you don't want to use alcohol, you don't have to at all. In fact, when I put the 1 tablespoon in earlier, you could use extra lemon juice if you want to. If you haven't got brandy, you can put in another alcohol, but a strong one, so port or Cointreau, something like that. Or leave it out completely and put in extra fruit juice. So at this stage, I'm going to add another tablespoon of whatever the liquid is you choose to add. And you need to be able to let it run through the fruit. That's why I haven't pressed it down. So in it goes. And then the lid goes on. And you're done. You need to be able to turn it. That's why you don't want it packed too tightly. And from time to time, my family find jars like this on the worktop so that all the liquids can run through and the fruit then soaks them up and it plumps up. It needs a good 3 or 4 weeks really for this before you actually use it. So if I were you, I would write a label that says what it is, mincemeat, and the date, and put that on there so that everybody knows what it is. There we are. So you've started getting ready for Christmas. I hope you enjoy this. Have a go. I think you'll enjoy it. I'll be surprised if you go back to commercial mincemeat after this. Send us a photo if you do it. Enjoy.